I call this episode, Is All That We See or Seem a Dream Within a Dream? And the major theme here is that for a long time now, something's been bothering me about, I get this nagging feeling that we as human beings have moved away from what we're supposed to be as human beings. And I guess you could call it all, it's possible that we're all being deceived and tricked into going down a path we shouldn't be going down. Now, an easy interpretation of that could be, we're living this false reality where we're disconnected from life and the earth. I think, it's possible that we should be more in touch with things like farming and animal raising and husbandry and, simpler things. Instead, we're living in this very complex world. But let me start out by saying let me get back to the Camino, the pilgrimage I'm going on, and how it kind of brought these thoughts back to me about moving away from reality, moving away from being human. The Way of St. James is a 500-mile pilgrimage from the southwest corner of France to the very western edge of Spain. It's a pilgrimage to the supposed remains of St. James in a little church. And pilgrims have been doing it for 1,000 years, like for real. And I was struck by the story that in order to prove that you did this pilgrimage from anywhere in Europe, once you got to what's called the end of the world, the western edge of Spain, and finished your pilgrimage, you were to get a scallop shell and bring it back to your home church or cathedral or wherever you came from, as proof that you made the pilgrimage. And I think that's quite wonderful, and the symbol of the scallop shell remains as a symbol of the pilgrimage. So pilgrims now wear either a scallop shell or a patch with a scallop shell on it. And all along the trail, the hundreds of miles, are signs with scallop shells. So that's kind of wonderful. That was for, 800 years, 900 years, the proof. And then they changed that at some point to now, which is quite lovely. But you carry this little paper booklet with you. It's kind of like a fold-out sheet. And all along the way, you get a stamp from all these different little spots. And you have to get those stamps. Well, you don't have to, but they're proof of you doing the pilgrimage. You get these stamps along the way, and you have to get a certain number of stamps. And when you get to the final destination, the burial place of St. James, they will review your little booklet and give you a certificate saying that you completed the pilgrimage. And I think all of that is wonderful. And so that's a progression. Now, the next progression that I think will happen next is it will all be cell phone. I think that's going to happen. It's a shame, but I feel it's a shame, but come a time where you will scan a barcode with your cell phone and it will track your progress all along the Camino, and it will offer you the proof, and you'll get some kind of an e-certificate that you did it. And I thought to myself, then where does it go next? After that, what will happen next is, and my prediction is that you will be able to virtually walk the Camino. You will strap on or get in your little virtual reality set, strap on your headgear, and walk the whole Camino without ever leaving the comfort of your living room. And you'll still get some kind of certificate to do it. It's very Facebook meta, virtual world. So you can see how I'm saying that this little example is a detachment from reality, from what we're meant to be as humans. You start out with a walking your physical body all the way to the end of the world. They call it the end of the world, the ocean. At the time, 1,000 years ago, it was the end of the world. They didn't know there was a continent on the other side of the ocean. And you would get a physical thing, a scallop shell, as proof. Then we progress to a little piece of paper with written things on it and stamps on it, and then we're going to progress to electronic verification. Eventually, we will progress to virtual experience of it. And I thought to myself, this is a small example of what's been going on with the world and how we're getting detached from what it is to be human beings. I got this feeling that we shouldn't be in groups of more than 100, 200 people. Little villages are what human beings are meant to live, how we're meant to live. Because we get these big organizations now that are just controlling so many aspects of our lives. But let me go through the progression. I was listening to a podcast, and on the podcast they were talking about how beautiful the written word is, but how something is lost between the spoken word and the visual word. And that's true. The written word and the spoken word. The most basic human communication is the spoken word. And it transmits so much when you're physically there with someone and you're talking to them, and you see them and you feel them and you hear their words. There are subtleties and impressions and I don't know how else to say it, experiences. There are things that are going on that are extremely complicated and very human. We made at some point a transition to written word, which is wonderful. I'm a reader. Many of us, you might be a reader too. But while the written word excels in some things, it is still a step away from being human. Right? And now, our movement away from being human is getting even worse. And this is something you can relate to. I was going for my walk a few days ago, and I was off my schedule. I had a bunch of things to do during the day. I ended up going later in the day. So by the time I was finishing up my walk, it was dark, which I don't usually do, just for safety. I don't want to fall, or I don't want to get into any trouble. But I was walking by this one car, and it had these two young people in it, teens, 20s, I don't know. They were just sitting in their car, parked, idling, and their faces each were illuminated by their cell phones. They both were very deep in their cell phones. And I thought to myself, this is a further step of detachment from what it is to be human. The ubiquitousness of all these electronic screens now are become between us as people. The telephone was an example, I guess, probably, but television, computer monitors, pads, iPads, cell phones, all these things are further separating us from what it is to be human. And now, so more is lost. More of being human is lost. Just like we took the step to the written word in books, we lost something of our humanity. We've further lost more of our humanity through these electronic digital transmissions. And next, they're talking about virtual worlds, which people do it now. You got Facebook Meta, and you got other things. There are different services that you can just kind of strap your virtual helmet on, and you can walk around and experience in a virtual world. And then it's taken this step is even going even further now, because now that there's a lot of talk about something called transhumanism, where, I don't know, where they implant things in your brain, and we start to become something more than human. That's how they're saying it. I think it's less than human, actually, but So we're making this progression away from what we used to be. I think it's a bad thing. I think it isn't how God meant us to be, but who am I to say? So that's my opinion. This progression is moving forward, and it's moving us away from what it is, the meaning of what it is to be human. Because being comfortable, having things done for us, having convenience, having things easy, isn't necessarily better. All right, so let me give you. Now I'm going to contradict the whole thing I said. I'll explain it. Then I'll end you with this, realizing that we come to nothing here. I'm sorry about that, but I'm just proposing things that maybe to give you something to think about. Let's take, for example, a beaver. Beavers. Beavers do what beavers do. They build dams. They gnaw on trees and fell trees and make branches and build their little dams and it's what they do. They do what they do. In a way, you could say they're programmed within certain parameters to manipulate the world around them in certain ways. And so I think to myself, what if a beaver somehow got into its mind that it was going to, what's a good example? Hunt for birds, and use the feathers in its den. Hunt for birds, which a beaver is not suited to do. It's the rare beaver that's ever going to catch a bird. So you could possibly say that a beaver is moving away from beaverness. It's moving away from what it was meant to be. Right? But the part that's contradictory for me is that the beaver would quickly die out because it just couldn't be able to do it. It's being unfaithful to what it was meant to be, and therefore the penalty is the dying of that species, I guess. So this brings us back to humans. So the big question here and the big contradiction here is, well, human beings are quite exemplary in our abilities, and maybe this is what we're meant to be. Maybe we're, because we're capable of it seems to be capable of it, and we're capable of thinking of it, because a beaver would never think to hunt for birds. A beaver only thinks beaver thoughts. But a human being thinking a lot of different thoughts and all these possibilities. So as we're moving away from what we used to be as humans into this new artificial intelligence, transhuman world, maybe that's being human. Maybe that's because that's what we were meant to do, because we're capable of it. The only true way of knowing whether or not, well, I don't know. I can't really make a good judgment call on this but I would say that if we die out as a species because of it, then it was not a success. But that's a tough way to learn the lesson. So I stick with, and this might be my age, I think that younger people might be more prone to disagree with me, and older people might be more prone to agree with me. But I think that we are moving away from what we were intended to be as humans. There's a there is a shade being thrown over our eyes, and we're being misled into being something we're not meant to be. That's my opinion. So I don't know what you think, but I think I do see how in the course of just a couple of decades, because when I grew up, there were no computers. In the course of a couple of decades, there's been dramatic and profound changes in human beings and how we interact and how we act and how we spend our time. I would imagine that hundreds of millions of hours of human being hours are now being spent online, on YouTube, in video games, on Twitter and Facebook, and all these less than realities. So that's it. That's my That's my little talk for today on all that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. And it seems like we may be going deeper into the dream. But then again, maybe it all is a dream within a dream, or maybe we are already living in the Matrix. I don't know. According to Elon Musk, he thinks that the probability is very high that we are living in the Matrix. Wow, isn't that mind-blowing? So, thanks for listening. I got a lot more stuff coming. I'm doing pretty well. I'm putting out the stuff. If you're a patron, I thank you very much for your patronage. Looking forward to my upcoming pilgrimage in Spain, where I will get my stamps. Hopefully, if I can complete the whole thing, and I'll get my certificate proving. I'll also try to get a scallop shell, but I'll get one ahead of time to show that I'm a pilgrim. I'm going to end this video with a little snippet, about a 1 minute, I think it's a minute, 4 seconds, a 1 minute piece, where I speak the Edgar Allan Poe poem, A Dream Within a Dream, and put some video in there. It's a nice little piece. I really like it. It came out really well. Thank you very much. Till next time. Take this kiss upon the brow, and, in parting from you now, thus much let me avow: you are not wrong who deem that my days have been a dream. Yet if hope is flown away, in a night or in a day, in a vision or in none, is it therefore the less gone? All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. I stand amid the roar of a surf-tormented shore, and I hold within my hand grains of the golden sand. How few, yet how they creep through my fingers to the deep, while I weep, while I weep. O God, can I not grasp them with a tighter clasp? O God, can I not save one from the pitiless wave? Is all that we see or seem but a dream within a dream?